Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Daydream Nation, and I've got John the Music Nut back to the channel. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Peter. How about you?
I'm going well. I'm going well. Today's episode, we're going to talk about songs that got an extra lease of life through movies. So the premise of this show is a song had to been released previously, it featured in a movie, and then it got a whole new audience. Three picks, maybe some honorable mentions, and the conversation can go in any sort of direction. So, John, what's your first pick? Yeah, we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Okay. This one goes out to my sister Laurie and her boyfriend, Peter Vanderhayden, who suggested I should do this song. And he was spot on. Bob Seger, Old Time Rock and Roll, released in 1978 on the Strangers in Town album. It was released as a single, 1979, hit number 28. 4 years later, a movie comes out called Risky Business, a movie I remember very well. They released a song in a movie. This is when I discovered the song. Best known for a young Tom Cruise dancing around his underwear, lip syncing the song because his parents left him the house for the weekend. And it got a new lease on life, and it hit number 48 on the US Billboard charts. So there's a song that had a new lease on life. It's become one of his most enduring songs. It's certainly one of his, he had a ton of hits here in the States, but top 5 most played songs by Bob Seger, you got to put Old Time Rock and Roll in there. So yeah, that's my first pick, Old Time Rock and Roll by Bob Seger in Risky Business.
What a Bobby Dazzler of a pick. That I forgot all
Thank you.
about that. That is part of pop culture. So I guess if they're doing a montage of Tom Cruise's most famous scenes, that's got to be in it.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of fond memories of that movie. That was a movie that was released in the school holidays, and my mum said, "You're not allowed to see Risky Business." And I said, "No, Mum, I'm going to see something else." I saw Risky Business.
That's right.
It had an impact on me, and it's got that sort of euphoria of you got this kid, he's got the keys to the castle and just letting loose in the house and just cranking up the music. And it's a perfect marriage between sound and vision, you know,
Absolutely.
and you cannot not hear that song and not think of the Tom Cruise scene where he's just going for it. That was a bit, I think that might have gone top 10 in Australia. That really gave a bit of injection in the charts. And I'd have to say that if you were going to talk to anybody off the street about Bob Seger, that song would be number one in regards to, old time rock and roll. So, no, that's a
Oh, yes.
perfect marriage, and
Thank you.
certainly gave that song a lift. And that's the thing. What we're talking about here in this show, folks, is where songs are not just added gratuitously into a movie just as part of the soundtrack. They've got to have some sort of marriage with what's happening on the screen. Because there's a lot of songs that are just on soundtracks where they're just on a radio, or they're kind of incidental to what's happening. But this one is really a marriage of what's happening on the screen. So the next one I'm going to talk about gave this song a new lease of life to a lot of fans, and actually the band reunited out of it. So this was a band that a lot of people think is a bit of a one-hit wonder. In reality, they weren't. It's a power pop classic, and I'm talking about the Knack My Sharona. So if you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that there's a bit of Knack here, and I just wax lyrical about those Knack albums. Absolute genius. And My Sharona's a great song. There was a bit of a backlash after Knack Mania, and there was nothing. There was a movie called Reality Bites, and you've got the scene where you've got Winona Ryder all the other characters, and they're in a convenience store, and they hear the song on the, I think, on playing over the radio or the sound system, and it's the Knack, and they're doing a little bit of a dance, and yeah, the song got re-released. It charted in America, and it was the angle was the montage of the scene in the movie Reality Bites. So this is, were they trying to be ironic? I'm not sure, but one thing's for certain, it gave this song, a classic, a new lease of life, and the Knack actually did a little bit of a tour off the back of it. So, are you familiar with this movie?
I've never seen it, but I do know of it, and I do know that that song was featured in the movie. But it was a big movie here in the States, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's my pick. Reality
Nice.
Bites, My Sharona, the Knack.
Excellent. All right. My next one, and forgive me, I've never seen this movie, but I do know this song was featured very prominently in the movie, and it became a hit again in the movie. I remember it becoming a hit again, but I'm not the movie nut. I'm the music nut. So keeping that in mind, we're going to talk about Peter Gabriel, and the song is "In Your Eyes" from the album So. Now, this gave Peter Gabriel, it made him a superstar. He already had a lot of great albums, but So took him to another level. The song "In Your Eyes" is a wonderful ballad on this album that closes the album. And it was released as a single in 1987 here in the States, and it went to number 27. And then it was featured in the movie Say Anything with John Cusack. And John Cusack is trying to court someone he's dating, wants to date, playing the song "In Your Eyes" on a boombox while he's singing the song up to the window. And 1989 gets back on the charts again and goes up to number 41. And I think that scene in the movie has really brought this song a new life. This is one of his most enduring songs, to the point that Peter Gabriel has remarked about this song becoming so popular because of a lot of it, because of that scene in that movie. And I believe in a performance that Peter Gabriel was given 11 years ago, John Cusack came on stage and he gave Peter Gabriel a boombox, and then he walked off.
That's a nice touch.
Yeah. So
I
there's my pick.
I love that film. And John Cusack was quite, I think he was in his late 20s, and he said, "This is the very last teenage movie I'll do," because he did a lot of movies like One Crazy Summer, Better Off Dead, so many other movies that he did, but he was starting to get typecast as this smart Alec, teenage character in these movies, but yes, he was much older, and I think he wanted to get into more serious roles. Mm-hmm. My favorite line in this movie, he goes, "I gave her my heart and she gave me a big pen." Love that. Love that line. See a movie. It's quite emotional. It's a really, really good movie with a great soundtrack. Cameron Crowe. He is the guy who has got a good sense of what needs to go into a soundtrack. And this is a good segue to my pick, which is Tiny Dancer, Elton John of Almost Famous.
Nice.
So this was off the Elton John album
Madman Across the Water.
Madman Across the Water. And there's a scene where they're all on the bus and they're singing Tiny Dancer. Now, to me, I know a bit about Elton John, but I don't actually remember Tiny Dancer in the day as ever being a significant hit or something that was played on the radio a lot. But post this movie, this certainly gave this particular song a new lease of life. Whether I like it in the movie a lot, there's bits where you've got the cast that are singing to a song, it can be kind of mawkish and cheesy. So I'm not sure. I love this movie a lot, but this scene where they're actually singing, I don't know. It's just on the verge of being a little bit mawkish for my taste. This is just my personal taste. But one thing that can't be denied, a lot of people gravitated to this song, and voila, it was in Elton John's song list. And I think a lot of people were going back to that album, which may have not got the focus that his other albums were getting, like Yellow Brick Road, etc., etc. Do you like that song?
I love that song, and I bought that album right after that because you could not avoid that song here after it was featured in that movie. It hit number 41 here in the States when it was originally released in, I'm going to say 1971, somewhere
Yep.
around there. And, but it has become one of his most adoring songs because of it being in Almost Famous, a movie which I've seen. Now,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a song he has to do live. I mean,
Yeah.
now it would be it's one of those songs that and Leave On, which are like they weren't really big hits here, but they endured as Elton John classics.
Mm,
I mean, their song they're probably two of his 10 or 12 biggest songs here in the States, even though they didn't even hit the top 40. That's a
yeah.
magnificent pick and an excellent song. Excellent
Yeah.
album, that Man Across the Water, too.
Absolutely. Am I being a bit of a Grinch to think that scene on the bus is a little bit mawkish? I don't know. I love the
No,
film, but it's just, I don't know.
I think so. No,
Yeah. Yeah. All
I think
right.
it fits the scene perfectly.
Okay, John, what's your next pick?
A lot of you watching this show are probably already thinking, oh, God, that's an easy one. You got to talk about Bohemian Rhapsody. 1975, Night at the Opera, became the big album for Queen here in the States. Bohemian Rhapsody, one of the greatest songs recorded, hits number 9 here in the States. Night at the Opera, fantastic album, arguably their best, probably my favorite. And then in 1992, it's featured in the movie Wayne's World. Wayne's World, which came out of a skit on Saturday Night Live with Mike Myers and Dana Carvey. And it was featured in this movie, and they're in a car, and they start banging their heads and shaking their fists. It would have looked a lot better for me to do this many years ago when I had long hair. But for my generation, and probably the generation after, that's what we think of when we hear Bohemian Rhapsody, when they go into that chugging riff, dun, 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 and the headbanging.
Mm,
And, of course, we had the Bohemian Rhapsody movie a few years ago that gave it more life for another generation. So this is probably the most famous song by Queen in this country, even though they had bigger hits. And I don't have the Wayne's World soundtrack, but I have Night at the Opera. So, yep, Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen.
yeah,
19.
that
I'm sorry, I forgot to give you the chart entries. My mistake. 1975, number 9. And then in 1992, it hit number 2. It became a bigger hit after. So there you go.
absolutely, that is a great pick. And so you
Thank
had
you.
Queen that in the late 70s and early 80s, they were quite huge in America. Number one, Bites of Dust,
Yes.
um, went to number one. The Game, that was right up in the charts. Freddie and David had the duet, Under Pressure.
That's
And
correct.
then things started to go a little bit pear-shaped with a certain album called Hot Space, which I've seen a lot of video clips with people that are in our orbit, which is not looked at quite favorably. There was a sort of thing called the Wilderness Years where they didn't really, I don't think they toured America. But this movie came out, and I think it was very inspired that this is kind of the high point of the movie, the comedic high point of the movie.
Right.
And just the scene where they're in the back of the car and they're headbanging to the metallic or the hard rock passage in that song changed the fortunes of Queen. After obviously Freddie had passed away, but it changed the fortunes of their back catalogue because people were thinking, what a great song. Explored this song and then went back in time. Queen have the number one greatest hits. I think they've got the number one selling vinyl album for the last 5 or 6 years, and that's the greatest hits package.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had the Bohemian Rhapsody movie. There's been 3 points in their career where they've had, an uplift, but definitely in that movie, it just matched the material so well because if you're going to have a headbanging scene and it's punchy, that's just a great passage of music to match sound and vision. It's the payola as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, yes.
All right, that's great. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the topic of Pulp Fiction because there was quite a few songs on that album. There's one song in particular that I want to put focus on, and that was Jungle Boogie.
Nice.
So I think that Quentin had a love of soul music and R&B. He loves blaxploitation cinema. This song is the signature song of Pulp Fiction. You just got to listen to this song now. You think, oh, Pulp Fiction. You associate one from the other. Particular movie was uber cool. It resurrected the career of John Travolta. Samuel L. Jackson was cool. Harvey Keitel. In fact, all of the fucking characters in this movie were just so damn cool. And the soundtrack that accompanied it, sold by the bucket load, personally curated by Quentin Tarantino, because I know he's very precise in selecting music for his movies because it's got to match what's happening on the screen and it's got to be thematically correct. Jungle Boogie, you've got to have an entry point to the movie. It's got to be uber cool. It's got to announce an entrance. Jungle Boogie.
Nice.
I just think, and he is the master of the soundtracks that digs in, curates, and gets old songs and puts them into new movies. I've got some other examples. I'll go when we do some honorable mentions. We'll go down. You can do a whole branch and call it the Quentin Tarantino branch. But out of all the songs that he's picked, I think Jungle Boogie is the one that comes to the fore.
Nice.
I mean, you can just close your eyes and visualize Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson wearing the suits and the thin black ties.
Oh, yes.
Not only it created an image, it created a fashion that was cool. It was just cool. How do you define it? I don't know, but it just was cool.
Love that movie to death. Love that soundtrack to death. Resurrected Dick Dale.
Yep.
Ms. Lou.
Yep.
Introduced me to Dick Dale. And then I started buying Dick Dale albums. Yeah. And I got to see Dick Dale live too before he passed away.
Absolutely. Inspired.
Wow.
Inspired.
Yep. Yeah. Excellent pick. So where are we going to go now? We're going to do our honorables.
Yeah. Over to you, my friend.
All right. Now, I got some honorables here. I don't necessarily remember the movie scenes, but these songs all gained a new lease on life after they were featured in movies. Okay. Do You Love Me by the Contours from the movie Dirty Dancing. It was a hit in 1962. It went to number 3. Got a new lease on life after being featured in Dirty Dancing. I remember this very well. This was all over the radio in 1988. Went to number 11. My next one, I had some other ones that I'm going to stay away from, But second out first, Pretty in Pink.
Oh, yes.
Originally released in 1981 off of their second album, Talk, 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 came a number 43 hit. Not quite a hit, but went to number 43 in the UK. They do the movie Pretty in Pink, 1986. They named the movie after the song. Gets a new lease on life. It's number 17 in the UK, and it just misses the top 40 here in the States at number 41.
John
This is
Hughes
one
is he's another
of
one. John Hughes
John
is
Hughes.
another one who was just very on the money in regards to curating songs that were maybe just previously released 5 years, or songs of what was happening. And I don't mean your AOR radio friendly. He had his ears very much on, the trends, like listening to new wave or alternative. He's listening to stuff like, it'd be in the wheelhouse of, say, New Order or The Cure.
Right. Absolutely. And I got one more for you. And I have to give you this one because John Clauser suggested it to me when I said we were going to do this topic. Hazy Shade of Winter, originally written and released by Simon and Garfunkel, goes to number 13 in 1966 as a standalone single. It's later released on the album Bookends. 1987, the movie Less Than Zero. A little band called the Bangles, who were hot at this time, did their version of Hazy Shade of Winter, and it hits number 2 in the States. And to me, I'm sorry, this is the definitive version of Hazy Shade of Winter. I think they knocked it out of the park on that song. That's one of my covers there, few covers that are better than the originals. Hazy Shade of Winter from the movie Less Than Zero, 1987.
They knocked it out of the park like the New York Mets.
No doubt about it.
Maybe not this season, but next year, folks. Uh, no, that is an absolute classic. I've got that soundtrack. Slayer do a very tasty version of In the Gata Davida.
In the Gata Davida. Yep, that's right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then you've got Rock and Roll Pneumonia, Aerosmith. They do a very tasty version of that. And Poison do Rock and Roll All Night. Yeah, it's a really good soundtrack album.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
no
nice. I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but a couple of things I remember is Robert Downey Jr. is outstanding, and James Spader plays a greaseball again. Another slimy, slick back hair, yuppie, drug pusher, horrible guy. I love James Spader, but when he plays the bad guy, he really plays the bad guy.
Oh yeah, he's great, and he's great at that.
Yeah, but and Andrew McCarthy's in it, so it's actually Downey and Spader outshine McCarthy, because McCarthy, I don't know, he kind of sort of, a lot of his films, he's kind of very laid back. He kind of looks like he's sleepwalking through his roles. The actors all around McCarthy always seem to be acting over him a little bit. I don't know. It's a good movie. Honorable mentions: Boogie Nights, Jesse's Girl. I recently did a show about Rick Springfield with Stephen Schnee and Tim Derling, and I was doing a little bit of a dissection of the scene in the movie where Mark Wahlberg and John C. Reilly, they do a drug deal with some drug pusher in the Hollywood Hills, and Jesse's Girl's playing on the stereo, and Mark Wahlberg is sitting on the couch, and he's kind of looking stoned and in a state of, he's just disassociation. I think he's listening to the song Jesse's Girl, and he's thinking, I wish I was somewhere else. I wish I had the problem that Rick was having with Jesse's Girl. Perfect synergy of music and what's happening on the screen. And that scene is really a really weird blend of comedy and tension, because you just don't know what's happening. Tarantino, Reservoir Dogs, Stuck in the Middle with You, the famous ear-cutting piece, which is, you can never hear that song again.
No doubt.
Little Green Bag by George Baker selection. People had forgotten about that song. That was a little George Baker selection, a bit of a Dutch pop act. People forgot about that, but that's a great, outstanding opening track just to, get that little bit of groove and coolness.
Nice.
Putting Out the Fire with Gasoline, the old theme from Cat People at the end of Inglourious Bastards, where
nice.
you've got the characters in that movie doing a bit of revisionism about the World War II and Hitler. That was inspired. So Tarantino, he is just inspired with all his selections, and all of these songs got a new lease of life.
No doubt about it.
Absolutely. Train Spotting, the start of the movie Lust for Life, Iggy Pop. Iggy Pop got a big tick, big uplift. So you've got the opening segment where they're running through the streets of Glasgow, and you've got that wonderful bass and drum start, and Iggy's crooning over the vocals. That's perfect, opening to any movie you would ever see. Just sound and vision. That's my selections. So you got any more, or we're done?
Yeah, I can give you a few more. You're talking about Pulp Fiction. I was thinking of Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon, which was originally a big hit for Neil Diamond. And then it became a minor hit for Urge Overkill.
Yes.
And it was the most successful song they had here in the States, but that's the version that I heard first, and that's how I always identify that song, even though I do love the Neil Diamond version as well. You have Lean on Me, which was originally a hit for Bill Withers. And then they put the movie out of Lean on Me in 1987, I believe. And a band called Club Nouveau did a version of it, and that became a big hit. They made it more, made it more now, and it had a bit of a reggae feel to it.
Yeah, a bit dated, isn't it?
It's very dated, I would say. Yeah. Bill Withers' version is the definitive. I mean, it's magnificent.
Yeah.
I have those, and Stand By Me by Benny King, which was originally released in 1961, and it went to number 4, and then they made the Stand By Me movie in 1986, gave it a new lease on life, went to number 9 here in the States in 1986, and went to number 1 in the UK.
Yeah, that's good. So there you have it, folks. Always good to have you on the show, John. I think we've come up with some wonderful examples. This is I think it's a pretty decent topic because we can go down multiple rabbit holes, but I think a lot of record companies just love this because it gives a new lease of life to a lot of the established artists' catalog. And if they are able to score a lucrative soundtrack, it's money, it's pot of gold. So I think we've covered some really good examples of songs that charted some time ago, have been in a popular movie and had a whole new lease of life, and in some cases have gone up the charts yet again. So you can see John, the Music Nut, on My Music Corner. You can see him on the Contrarians. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. Click the bell. Tell us what choices that you would put on this show, what songs that you think had a lease of life out of being on a movie soundtrack. But one thing's for sure, you'll see me and John on a show very soon. See you later. Cheers.
Cheers.